Okay.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. We are Kablamo.
Hey, what's up? That's Santi. I'm
This
Julia.
is Julia. And here we are in our backyard talking about art and music,
Yes.
and particularly our next EP that came out of Julia's incredible brain.
Aw.
So, yeah, I think we just want to scratch our brains and try to get real for a second.
Yep.
So, I guess I'm just gonna start by asking you, Jules, what's the EP about?
Okay, well, good question. Just the other day, we decided to call it Go. At least that's the potential title at the moment. Because that's really what it's about. It's putting your foot on the gas and kind of going boldly for what you want, despite the things that maybe scare you or get in your way, and kind of making it the utmost priority to figure out what it is that's keeping you from, embracing your fate, truly, and trying to find it out, and not just like passively trying to find it out, like actively trying to find it out. I always think about intention, and everything we do is a choice and a decision, and there are a lot of things I feel like we say we want to do but we don't. And why? There's temptation, there's things that kind of get in our way, and that's all fine and they're all part of life, but how much do you want them to get in your way versus how much do you want them to kind of be on the back burner, and maybe let some things go that you might love because you love something more than that thing that you love, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how I feel like thinking and feeling are great things. And if you're very smart, you're lucky. And if you're emotionally intelligent and sensitive, you're also in a good position. But there's definitely such a thing as being like too smart and too emotionally intelligent for your own good. And I think it's especially relevant when you're making art, because like so much of art is navigating those weird rationalizations and like intrusive feelings that keep you from doing the thing you want to do the most. It's whatever it may be. Like sometimes it's the thing that's like keeping you from just sitting on the chair and finishing whatever project you're working on. And it's hard to explain, but at the end of the day, you can think it or rationalize it or feel it any way you want, but like all you have to do is like go and do it. Like, and whatever you have to do to make that happen, like you have to do it. Like it's like your calling as an artist to do that. And to me, like basically Julia's been writing these songs for like a couple months. They've just been coming out. She's riding a high, and so seeing what's been coming out, I'm like, whatever it is you're doing, just keep going, because like you've definitely landed on a groove, kind of like where you're, I think, defying a lot of the emotion and the over rationalization, keeping you from just literally doing what you love and finishing these songs and putting them out and just going like full throttle all the way,
Absolutely.
to the end.
Yeah. I think one of my biggest like life themes, as everyone knows, is like comfort, my like love for comfort. I like take my time when it comes to big changes, and really assess the situation before I do things, which is like an asset that I value in many ways, but at the same time, like that has its pros and cons, but the con is just taking my time too much. Like I could just hypothetically sit around forever if I use that mindset too much, just not really moving forward in life. And I still feel like, and this is something that I think a lot of mid-20s somethings are going through, is just like the inner child and kind of facing that. And I feel like in many ways I really really do feel like there are some like little areas of my life that like, okay, like we're not 13 anymore. I've been postponing things for so long that at this point, like I'm still like a 13 and 14-year-old in many ways.
Yeah, it's such an interesting balance, I think, because like I think it a lot of the time comes down to like living the life like that you want to live, and living the life as richly or as fully as possible. Like, I feel like any religion or belief or any kind of justification you have for your existence kind of like leads to the idea that we don't really know what's going on, so we gotta go hard and take advantage of it. But I feel like on the one hand, it's like easy to waste time, and you kind of your life just happens to you. And then the other hand, it's I think you could get obsessive with like controlling your time and kind of going against the tide of maybe what life is telling you to do or what like your reality is giving you. So it's like a balance of like keeping yourself to a high standard in terms of like always having this motivation and this inspiration to keep going and keep like doing what you love, and just relentlessly like determined to like live the life that you believe is your purpose. But at the same time, like being open to what's around you and the people around you, the world around you, and like not fighting certain things, just more riding those waves that you should be riding. You know, it's very evident with what you're making that you're finding that perfect in between where you're taking in so much, and you know, I mean, obviously I feel like I'm doing it too, but you've been very inspiring in the sense that you're taking everything and then you're also pushing yourself.
I feel like making mistakes is such a thing I've always been afraid of. I've always been, you know, like kind of more like, oh, I'd rather like do it right when I do it than do something when I'm not prepared to do it type of things. But that's why and that's why doing is such a good thing to kind of keep telling myself, is just like, just do something and then like determine from there and just kind of keep going. It's just, I think it's just a way faster way to learn and change and grow if you just keep like do this, do that, do the next thing, while also always reflecting. And of course, like I feel like it does take a little bit element of knowing yourself to be able to do that with a little bit more confidence, where like I am able to just do and go because I trust at this point that what I do is going to at least somewhat be me, and I'm not going to do anything completely out of the ordinary.
Totally.
But then just in that case, just like there's no, what are you waiting for at this point? You know, like you're at the point where you can do stuff like that. So.
Right. It's like almost like our training wheels are off at this time in our life. Like,
exactly.
We've been working so hard. We've been doing all this stuff. We finished school, whatever. Everyone has their own kind of come up story. But then, you know, once you're there at the Olympics or the World Cup or whatever, which is kind of this stage in life, then like you just have to go and do it. Like, you know, you just go and go for it. And yeah, it's like, oh, you have dreams in your life. There's stuff you want to pursue. Like, it's right now. Like, you have to do it now. Like,
no, we're never ready.
It's you have these dreams, then do it. Go and you're ready to do whatever it is, and whether it works out or not, like you have to do it. Like, you know,
100%. I feel like that's the like a big thing about this age is, I feel like I wish I checked like Erickson's stages of life, like blank versus blank. You know how they have that? There's like a in childhood, it's like insecurity versus like shame versus
right.
You know, but I'm like wondering what the now one
psychology.
Is. But I feel like right now this is just such a turning point in regards to like, are you going to kind of keep doing the same old thing until you're like because I feel like this is the point in your life where like what you start doing right now, like you're going to be like 45 and you're going to be like, wait, where'd all the time go? Like, I've been doing the same. Like, right now is the time where it's like, all right, are you going to stay on top of this? Because you can go on autopilot. You can.
It's very easy, but I feel like my commitment is to live like a life where I feel like oppressed, or where I feel like just like a general resentment towards my routine is unacceptable. It's just completely unacceptable. It's like dying. Like, you know, so every time I feel that way, my like survival mode kicks in. And I think being an artist is a big reason why I feel that way, because I can't my whole purpose is to create, you know. I can't be like put into this way of living, like, and you know, obviously I have my privileges and this and that, and we all have our different ways of living, but like I don't need a lot of money. I don't need anything. I have my own kind of like version of what this happiness looks like, and it's just to have the freedom to express myself, to create, to make my music, to spend my time with my friends. Like it's just, to just feel a general sense of fulfillment at every moment. And I feel like, to me, that's what saved me. And I think that anytime I make music that feels like it's coming from that commitment, it's like my best music. And again, I feel like it feels similar in the sense that you're so committed to doing this, and these songs are so kind of forward moving, they're almost like defiant. It's more like a, I don't know, it's like a rebelling against that comfort,
Yes.
stagnant,
Yes.
like what do you call it, when you like agree with stuff,
People pleaser.
settle, or like just,
Oh yeah.
like,
That works too.
you know what I'm saying, like, but yeah, it's like kind of rebelling against the side of us that just wants to purposelessly survive.
Yes.
Purposelessly survive,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
sick.
No, definitely. Yeah, that is another like weird and fun thing about this EP is the my relationship with not just like taking it easy. I'm all about take it easy, like, take it slow, like do things at your own pace. Again, like comfort and like soft, nice energy. And that's why to get a little gritty, like a little bit like, like go, like, where is that fire going to come from if not from like something like that, like that like energy, that like ambition, like it comes from a place that like I don't talk to that often, and again I need to get to know that side of myself if I'm gonna want to do things and get places and move forward, so that does describe like a lot of the sonic soundscape of this is the gritty energy that like also is something that just in general in music in itself I haven't really done too much before, but then also it's still being able, like realizing that you can be gritty even in music and still it's extremely authentically myself.
Genuine, yeah.
The delay trails and all that stuff are still there and still me, but then just kind of incorporating that. That's what I love so much is the ever-encompassing way that the music and the vibes have collided.
Now, a big thing I love about this in general is that it's exactly because you're kind of like a homebody sometimes, or like a comfort-seeking person, that this is a testament to how like anyone can connect to that side of themselves that inspires them to do stuff. It's like anyone who thinks they're to this or to that, or oh, that could never be me, or I could never do this thing or that thing, it's like these songs are the kind of thing that is like, you definitely can, man. Like, it's like obviously you felt that before where you're like, I'm not like gritty, or I'm not like, you've always been like a go-getter, but like you're not just like stepping out of your comfort zone, but you're like going past your comfort zone. You're like this is not enough. And I don't know, it's these songs definitely, you hear them and it motivates. I don't know, it's like I really do think everyone can do this. It's just kind of like a commitment to how you want to live,
Completely, yes. And like whatever it takes to kind of get you to be like, okay, I'm done now, because I feel like that's always the question. It's like, what is it going to be that's going to trigger it? Does it have to be hitting rock bottom? Does it have to be outside circumstances? Like, does it have to be, like, what does it have to be? And I felt like, again, when you're particularly like the most sensitive times are just when you're kind of like content, when you're just floating and you're all good. Like, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing amazing, nothing wrong. That's, again, like I think the best way to describe this EP, at least in my emotional state entering the EP, was being tired of being content. That's like, and saying, okay, you can be content. I could literally do this forever. I could just be content and chill and not really, make any moves or make any waves, or like what do I gotta do, and it wasn't anything. There wasn't anything in particular other than just like my own motivation and insisting that it's time.
And I think that's the best thing about also like art in general, is that when you kind of reach this point of commitment and insisting and stuff, it's like it's not about the results, it's not about the like waves you make in the world or the status or the power or the money or anything. It's about feeling like you're expressing yourselves like, or like creating something that it feels like, oh yeah, that's me, like, oh, like that's actually good. Like I feel like I'm finally beyond just scratching the surface of the potential that I have. And just it's a way of living where you like want to live by like surrounded by art, just by surrounded by the beauty of everyone else and everything else, and then just also creating it, and so it's like just the creation of these songs is like such a win, it's like a proof to you that like you're actually able to like say like screw it, like I'm gonna go for it, like I don't want to just be content, I want to, this is my life, like this is what I want to do and I'm gonna do it.
And that's really like again the ever-encompassing, like even more so, like I mean I've been making demos for so long and just being content, like that felt good when I made it. I'll listen back to it a bunch throughout my life, but that's and maybe one day I'll make them into something that I end up releasing or whatever. Like just the action of not only finishing these songs but as quickly as possible and like actively again pushing, like I'm going to keep moving, I'm going to keep the momentum going, and what are the next steps, like I'm going to go to the next steps, like in just the process of making this album. And it's led to us making almost like the most like close to finished songs in the littlest amount of time.
It's just going truly. I wanted to talk about the songs a little bit.
Let's do it.
So the first song is called Cloud 9. It's the only song like I wrote kind of fully in the EP. I overheard like 2 different people that day use the word Cloud 9 for some different reasons, like completely unrelated situations. And I went home, and usually I think I'm going through dry spells, but it's when I make the best stuff. And I was like, I'm in such a dry spell, so I need to kickstart my creativity. So I started this like pad, like soundscapey thing with my guitar and my pedals. I was like tweaking the pedals as the pad was going to reach this kind of like very intense distortion sound. So that's the beginning of the song. Then after I did that, I went into the DAW and I edited it. I'm not going to get carried away in production, but it's my thing. And I just like chopped it all and changed the pitch and made this crazy like synthy sound. And then I tuned my guitar differently and the chords just kind of came out of me. And I think what this song meant to me was like, honestly, it is very consistent. Even though it was 2 different eras, it's very similar to the vibe of the EP, and that I was like, I can do this. Like it was like a proof to myself that like I can write something that's like fire. It felt so cool, so like almost like defiant, like I was making more like soft poppy stuff, and this song's very like gritty, and the chord progression's very like dank, and it's just feels so good to listen to. And it was so genuine also. And I mean, we picked it up recently and finished it, but I liked calling it Cloud 9 because to me it's kind of like this, like the birth of an idea is this song, and to me that is like ultimate happiness, like that moment where you like are striking gold and you're making music and it's just coming straight from the source and you're like in heaven for a second, like when you're making this kind of stuff. So that song is like very ecstatic, very exciting, like it was a very exciting song. It's a very exciting thing to just write music like that when it comes, and I think that's the high and the thing that I'm always pursuing all the time in life, so
yes,
that's the first song. And then I guess we don't have to go in order to the EP. We can talk about.
I was just thinking the other day about how I would describe the emotional like progression of the EP to be in a way different order than the songs are, which is, I think, like at least for me, I would say that Putting Up With Me would be kind of like the early stages of the emotional journey, which I don't know, it's just feeling like weird, feeling off, feeling like
what is Putting
something's
Up With
wrong.
Me about?
It's really, I mean, it was just kind of it was like an emotional vomit of a song, and that just in my friendships, in my own mind, and just in general, I just knew something was wrong. I felt like I was just continuously catching myself doing things that I wished I wasn't doing, but I like couldn't control myself as I was doing them. Like whether you're like talking back at people or just like seeing a side of myself that I don't want to be seeing in my day-to-day life, and feeling guilty and weird about it, not only in the way that it's affecting the people around me, but then of course how it's affecting myself and how I'm dealing with my own battles and feeling guilty and wrong in the way that I'm dealing with those. I know that I'm doing something wrong. I say, like, is this how it is now? Am I really lazy? Like, take away the order, take away the boundaries. That just kind of means that if you took away like this like instinctual order that I place on myself, then I would have no boundaries. I'm
Right. It's like, do you have like a natural inclination towards things that maybe you don't approve of?
Exactly.
That's like the question you're kind of asking.
Yeah, 100%. Just kind of like it embodies the feeling of like having something coming out of your mouth and immediately being like, I wish I didn't say that, but then also not saying out loud, hey, I wish I didn't say that.
Right.
Like just kind of having this like internal conflict of
kind of letting the intrusive thoughts win. Like,
yeah.
I think it's a great place to start. I mean, if this EP, in a way, I mean, there's many reads on it, but it's a lot about maturity, and I think maturity's like before you go through like a process of maturity, there's a lot of like the kind of reptilian sides of humanity are less tame, or you're less familiar with, and we're less like humbled by them. It's easier to let certain emotions or certain like desires take hold of our rational and emotional mind, and there's not like a solid of like maybe like a moral ground, or even just like the willpower and self-control to make the decision again to not do this stuff, do this stuff, and then the forgiveness also to like know that like we're all people, and if you do something that maybe you regret or that is like hard to put up with, like it's a work in progress. We all have that. And I mean, what I love about the song is that at least you're kind of like, oh man, yeah, that sucks. Like,
exactly.
At least you're like,
no,
I know I'm doing this stuff. I know it's hard to put up with it, but like, at least I like know that that's not the kind of person I want to be,
100%. I always like want to like problem solve in my songs. I feel like it's like, because that's how I journal, is like I'll start with the conflict and I'll dive into it and I'll throw up all of the problems and say everything that's wrong. But then in the end, I'll just end on a positive note, like it's okay because blah, 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 blah. And I didn't do that in this song, which was kind of on purpose. And it's just a song that is designated for feeling not good, for feeling those feelings. And that's my place where I sat and I cried and I felt that and I acknowledged that and felt annoying. And it feels nice that that's just a song that's for that, rather than like a song that has to be ever encompassing and that like, yeah, it's not easy putting up with me, but blah, 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 blah. Obviously, within itself, to acknowledge out loud this stuff is kind of a first step that's kind of happening under the surface. But overall, it's a song where I'm just like, it's not easy putting up with me. I don't know what's going on. I'm always reminiscing and talking about the past, and I'm blabbering and just all of that stuff.
So what's the next like step emotionally?
Yeah, I feel like the next step would be Crutch, which is kind of just the moment where you're like, really, like instead of just like feeling these raw feelings of something's wrong, kind of asking yourself like, are you my crutch? Like, have I been using crutches? Have I been using things that have been kind of making me comfortable and getting me by in this period? It's like asking yourself about what these roadblocks are and like, why am I,
and like excusing your behavior too. Like, I feel like the thing about a crutch, apart from people that need them in real life, is that it can keep you from growing. And like even if you do take like the physical example, like I don't know, you broke your leg or something, like there's eventually a point where you have to drop the crutch in order to heal,
Right.
you know, and like you do your physical therapy and whatever. Like I think it's similar with life where like you can be like pampered or like spoiled by your crutches, where like you'll keep doing the same behaviors that maybe you want to change because you surround yourself with things that like allow them to happen, you know. And I think a step in maturity also is kind of recognizing those crutches and then making the decision of maybe I should surround myself with different things, different people, or maybe I should work at a different place or live in a different place, or you know, maybe like the world I build around me should remove some of these crutches. And obviously then there's the personal way in which you have your own like, you know, there's the external and the personal. But yeah, that in order to grow, you have to kind of, again, take off the training wheels, you know?
Yeah, I feel like, again, that's one of those things, like what I was saying earlier about staying stuck in something forever. Like, these are the crutches are the types of things that really keep you somewhere forever, where it's just like, and it becomes like, you become so used to something that you don't even, you know, it just, you're leaning on something and you don't acknowledge it out loud. And if you never do, then you could just stay in the same place and not move forward. All in all, that's the thesis statement. You know, there's some other kind of more personal, like diving in elements of it that I kind of sprinkled into the verses. Moving on is easier done than said. I frequently get so afraid of moving on, moving forward from things, you know, like when it comes to crutches, it's like, oh man, I don't want to let this go. I don't want to do that, you know, and there's something that's trying to like keep you from like going through the gate of exiting it almost. And it's just one of those things that once you do it, it wasn't as scary as it seemed to begin with.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel like you're more likely to like accidentally move on from stuff than to do it, which I like that you're so vulnerable in these songs, but it's like, so many times I've seen you be like, oh, I don't want to move on from this or blah, blah, blah. And then like kind of you moved on and then you're like, oh yeah, you know, it's like, and that's cool. You know, it's great that you're able to do that. But I do think like there is a middle ground there between both where you're just kind of like, at some point you have to kind of be aware of what you're, you know, just like have that recognition of like, okay, yeah, I'm moving on. I'm getting over this, you know, like
Exactly.
maybe I didn't even want to move on, but it's happening. Like, you know, like when I moved and I had to like come to terms with the fact that life was gone, like I had already moved on, but conceptually I hadn't.
Exactly.
It was a big moment, you know?
Exactly.
Like,
but there does have to be a moment. Like, again, the most sustainable thing is to be like, things change. It's like nature. And that's also just another thing that kind of like feel like comes up in regards to going and keep moving is things change all the time. Nature is always progressing and moving forward. Like if you try to push against it, like it's not going to work. You got to keep moving. You got to keep going. And that's what moving on's all about.
Yeah, I mean, finding kind of like your place in nature, like, and using nature very liberally to refer to, I don't know, the sun and everything, you know. I think that is the move. It's like you're paying attention to kind of the rhythm of the world around you, while, you know, having a fire under your ass that's telling you to keep going as well, and be like, okay, like let's go, let's move, let's. You know, so it's this kind of sense of individuality, but at the same time, it's this sense of being part of something bigger. I don't know. It almost sounds religious, but it like really doesn't have to be. Like it's just the way it feels. It's what it feels like to be creative. Like I feel like anyone who's created anything can attest to that. When you're in that moment in the zone, like it just feels like you're ascending. Like, you know?
Completely.
What's next after Crutch?
What's next is assertive aggressive, and even as we talk about it, I mean, the truth of the matter is I wrote assertive aggressive first. So in a way, it kind of, in reality is first, in that it's like, so, I mean, assertive aggressive is all about being like, okay, the time is now, I'm doing this, it's time to insist that this phase is over and I'm moving on. I don't care what it has to be. I'm doing it. I'm doing it now. I'm doing it. Assertive, aggressively. I'm, you know, I don't want to be aggressive. I don't want to push, you know, so hard that it's not natural. But so that's why I'm going to be assertive in a way that feels almost aggressive, because I'm usually so passive that assertiveness in itself feels aggressive. And it's about, the time is now. But in reality, as I talk about these other songs, these are what I wrote after. Like, it's not as simple as that, unfortunately, being like, okay, starting tonight, tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up and live the perfect life. It's like, you are like, I'm going to change my life. And then you're like, okay, wow, I've been dealing with, all
This
these
stuff.
demons, what's up with this, crutch I've been leaning on? Is this something I need to let go of? Like, that's what it takes.
Yeah, I feel like it's like the superhero movie where at first they're hesitant and then, and then they decide to do it. And like, there's this big moment where they're like, I have to defeat blah, 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 or I am the chosen one, or whatever.
Exactly.
And then they also still have to go through what they have to go through.
Exactly.
And grow and become that, like, whatever figure,
Mm-hmm.
But everyone, has their own kind of, like, hero story. Like, it's, I don't know. That's why, again, why I love this narrative, because it's like, myth, movies, books, it's centuries and centuries of that for a reason. It's what keeps people moving as well,
Totally.
Hell yeah.
I want to read through this journal entry that I wrote the night of it. So I've told the story on stage a couple times now, but I was coming out of this phase where I kept feeling content. I mention it here, but took a walk, found some White Claws, White Claw iced teas, had a couple, watched Big Brother. It was an episode that didn't go well. And when something that's a reality TV, and when something bad goes in that show, it makes you kind of acknowledge the things that you don't like about reality too. It's just like when people, you're like, damn, like this like, why did this happen? I hate humanity for this. Like, so I was just filled with it, but I was also feeling excited and good. This is so silly, but I was on Instagram and I made like an Instagram story, like explaining to my followers just kind of that I found the original White Claw iced teas, which had been discontinued, and I realized how long it had been since I'd like kind of put myself on display for a second. And I've been like in front of my friends, like talking, like really like kind of like, I don't know, putting myself out there, being silly, being lighthearted in public kind of. And like, obviously in general, I carry myself in a certain way, but like just really like kind of remembering like a more like independent, free version of myself. So I was just kind of like, I just had this like, again, I described it as like a spell that was just being put together, like a cauldron of energies that
planets align.
Exactly. So I took a shower and I got out and I just started scribbling in my journal. And as if you glance over, you can see I like wrote something. I scribbled a little. I usually like keep it nice in between the lines and relatively neat, but I kind of just scribbled. 10:38 p.m. in my bedroom. I'm fucking tired of feeling depressed. I'm not depressed, but depressive for a while. It's gotten worse and worse since 2022 started. Like, a year ago felt dull, but in comparison to now, it doesn't even feel very dull, because right now is really dull. Today, until a few hours ago, wasn't good, but it's not much different than my life in general lately. Without Big Brother, my girlfriend, Santi, job hunting, and I don't know, food, I'd care about pretty much nothing. I guess that's life, but the lacking of spark in my soul, the lack of purpose, the aimlessness, feels worse than ever, and for the life of me, I don't know how to fix it in a way that doesn't rely on outside circumstances. Because when I feel low, I don't want to expend the extra effort it takes to get better, when meanwhile I'm so good at problem solving and feel optimistic in a way that is contagious to future and past selves when I am doing well. My wallet is suffering, my skin's discolored, nothing hypes me up, especially not sustainably. I know this sounds dumb, but my age is stressing me out because I want to get a good head start on my life. This is just such a quintessential turning point, and I need it to be good because I want to know that I'm going to live an exciting, extraordinary, meaningful, and fun life, and whatever's going on right now is so not that. I hate admitting that. I don't want to accept this, and that's why I'm in an empowering mood right now. More empowering than most of my moods these days, because if nothing else is going to work, then maybe passionate anger and frustration with a side of not taking things too seriously and being like, fuck this in an expressive, genuine, and almost artistic way will do the fucking trick. The combination of being really easy on myself and being chill and letting myself do whatever, combined with regretting it, being intensely unsatisfied with the results of my actions, and not accepting the state of my life is not fucking working. If I have to wake up at 6, not use my phone, or do whatever it takes to figure shit out, then maybe I should. In college, with all the semesters, it made it so easy to refresh, even if I had a down few months. Plus all the people in community vibes like that. That's why it's so much harder now, because time can fly with no outside changes or checkpoints to keep me in check. And to be fucking honest, it's scary. It's scary, it's scary, it's scary. That's why my energy has got to divert from fear and get empowered and assertive aggressively say that I'm not going to be scared and I'm not going to tolerate that. Oh, I'm so bored of this lifestyle. What do I have to do to end it? The baby steps are getting me nowhere. End of journal.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so that really puts it into words better than I ever could.
You're such a good writer, and you're not trying to be.
Yeah. It's funny when these things go to just me, myself, and I just kind of leave it at that. So,
I love like how discontent is such a powerful thing in the journal and just in this general. I felt very similarly, but from a very different set of circumstances. But it's like, thank God for my discontent. Thank God for my inability to enjoy life when it shouldn't be enjoyed, because that is the breaking point. That's the thing that makes you go like, no, no,
Yeah.
just no.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said before, it feels like death. It's like, this is not life.
Yes.
No, I refuse this. I
Mm-hmm.
refuse. And it's a great thing.
Completely.
It's not a great feeling at first, but then after that, you're going to be okay. Like, there's no doubt, because you're not going to stop until you're okay,
I think it's like vital and really cool too to be present in moments where you feel good, because me being so present and acknowledging so much how happy I am when things are going good is what makes me recognize in those discontent moments that this is not life. Like, this is not what life's supposed to look like. I've experienced immense joy before, and this is not what that is.
Yeah.
So
It's a funny contrast, because before we were talking about how just being content is not enough, but like, I think there's just like the idea of what contentment is in life, just like the recipe for a content life, and then our own sense of contentment, and it's like being content's not enough,
Exactly.
because I'm not actually content. I'm not living the life I want,
Yes.
I'm not, this is not this thing that other people may be like, and full power to them. It's just not my thing,
exactly.
you.
Exactly. It's like, to be content in my definition of like actually like what I will be content with in the lifestyle
Yeah.
is to always be pushing and
Yeah.
to not be content or
or to not to conform, really, like to the standards that aren't yours. So we have 2 more songs to talk about.
No, I think just pay for it.
Pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, pay for it is the last step. This is like the least that we need to really even talk about anyway, because really I do consider it the last step, and I also think it's the last lyrics I wrote, just in like kind of acknowledging the sacrifices you need to make at this point, but with a little bit more agency at this point, a little
Yeah.
bit like we've tackled the vulnerable emotions of being like, this is hard, this is tough, this I feel
Yeah.
I'm struggling. Now it's like, okay, keep going, babe. Like it's time to, again, like assertive aggressive, like what's going on, like what do you have to pay for, what do you want, and what are you going to be willing to sacrifice
Yeah.
to get it.
It's like the logistical aspect. It's almost like a dose of reality. It's like,
Exactly.
all right, we've empowered ourselves, we've gone through it, we're ready to take on the fight. What does the fight look like?
Yes.
And it's like, we can have all the discontent and dislike of like the systems in place that we're born into, and I'm not even gonna get political, but like, I think that's enough to just say that. But we have to pay rent, we have to get food, we have to find, and and we're privileged to be in a place where that's all we really need to do, but there's all these things that you just kind of have to do whether you agree with them or not. And I mean, if you get deeper, you have to sacrifice some social time if you want to like work on your art, or like I have to have this part-time job, and then I make a little less money to have an extra day. So what am I going to do with that extra day? I'm sacrificing that money. Am I going to actually use it to make art, which is why I want those extra days? It's like thinking about your life that way and being like, you're paying this price. Like, if you really want to do this, are you willing to pay the price that you should be paying, or are you just going to be paying this price that, like, are you going to pay the price for nothing? I think is also a good part of it. It's like, oh, you're just going to have this extra day and not going to do anything with it. Like, then you're going to pay the price for that, you know?
Exactly.
It's like, it's a little bit more like, all right, get on your feet, let's go, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like acknowledge your habits. And at the end of the day, it can be a very simple solution to things when you kind of understand it as just transactional a little bit. Like, okay, like, you know, that's fine. You want to do this, you want to do that? Okay. What do you want? You know what you deserve, you know? Like, it's funny because it's like an angsty lyric. It like sounds like you know what you deserve as if you deserve something bad, but you know what you deserve as in you deserve greatness. Like, but do you want it enough to go, like, are you going to sacrifice something else for it, or do you just want it all? You can't have it all. You, like, you know, you can't be, don't be greedy. Like, you, because again, you would feel like you cheated if you just sat around and made $1 million. You know, like you don't you want to earn it? Earning it feels good, you know? It feels rewarding that way. Like, so it's like, yeah, work for it. And like, the silly thing is that the journey and the process is the great stuff in the first place. So like, like, go, like, work, but like, sacrifice some things. Like, this is what you do when you want things. Like, you know, like, this
that's the spice of life. It's like, it's so easy to be like, I don't wanna, I just want to hand it to me, and it's like, and you don't want to like live, you know, and I have that all the time. I'm super bad at keeping myself accountable and wake up on time and all that stuff. But like, I really try, and I keep trying. I'm gonna keep trying my whole life, because like that's the purpose, you know, or that's what part of what the journey looks like, you know. I want to make really good music. I don't want to have really good music that has been made by me, you know. Like, it's about making it. You know, and beyond music, I want to live artistically, and it's living artistically is making your life a work of art, which means it's a way of life, which is every action that you do at every moment is towards that goal. It's not something you do sometimes, it's something you do all the time. You know? And there is a price to pay if you do it, and there's a price to pay if you don't.
Right.
You know, and you kind of have to make that decision. I personally, if I don't live this way, I'm going to be super discontent. I'm going to be super depressed. I don't want to pay that price. I'll pay the other price. I don't care what it is. You know?
Exactly. Like, what's the alternative? Really? Like, there is no alternative for artists and people. Like this is what you have to do, and that's why it's like, I was like, as I was writing the lyrics, I was like, damn, this is my bootstraps era. Like, but like, at the end of the day, like, that, it's like, I need a moment for that, you know. You need to have that moment if, like, as an artist, like, if you want to get things done.
I think we're good. With that.
Yeah.
All right, we've been Kablamo. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening.
Thanks. Us.